Hi, my name is Gio. I'm from Mexico. I'm 42 years, and I found an article about the volcano Iztaccíhuatl. I I will to read. I'm going to read this article. Okay, Iztaccíhuatl speaks promise Georgia's views, but first you must reach it. Okay, it's a Iztaccíhuatl, now from the white woman, but affectionately known as the sleeping woman. It's a dormant volcano and at 5,264 meters, Mexico's third highest peak, living as I do in Chipilo, Puebla. It's impossible to escape her. I see her and Popocatépetl, that volcano, from the front of my home and on drives to Cholula or Puebla. It was and still is more than a dormant volcano for many of Mexico's indigenous people. Both Iztaccíhuatl and Popocatépetl are revered as gods and sources of water. I'm not accustomed to climbing anything much larger than a modestly sized hill, but Marta Cabrera, my girlfriend, who's significantly more adventurous than me, was itching to climb Iztaccíhuatl. When Ari Castro Galicia, a good friend of mine, happened to mention her frequently takes people of the volcano, it seemed like it was time to try. Castro was an army mountaineering instructor, and since he retired 2 years ago, he has guided people up Iztaccíhuatl and other mountains. We were only going to hike to a place called El Refugio, which is about 4,700 meters tall, but it still promised to be challenging. How far one can go depends of the experience of the person and the conditions, said Castro. One needs to be in good shape. One also needs to be properly prepared. A person needs 2 liters of water minimum, Castro detailed. High-calorie food like nuts and chocolate, for example, gloves, mountain boots, a helmet, and walking sticks. He also told us to wear warm clothing and to bring sunglasses, sunscreen, and sandwiches. As he lists what we needed, it started to sound more than a little challenging. Marta and I drove to Iztaccíhuatl, Popocatépetl National Park, which is about 40 miles, almost directly west of Puebla City. A few miles past San Nicolás de los Ranchos, a small pueblo on the Paso Cortes Highway, the pavement ends and the road is bumpy, hard-packed dirt for several miles. Six of, six of us gathered at the parking lot of the Welcome Center at 9 a.m., where we registered and paid 50 pesos. The hike begins at La Jolla, located at 4,000 meters above sea level. Before continuing, Castro said a short prayer. I only ask permission from the mountain to climb and instruct myself to God, he told me. Shortly after leaving a short, flat stretch, you encounter a very steep part. Despite a weekly exercise regimen of 3 high-intensity workouts on a stationary bike and 3 days of swimming Russian kettlebells, I found myself puffing pretty hard. Alejandro Guzmán Machado Castro's friend and a second guide reminded everyone this is not a race. There is not rush. The hike to El Primer Portillo, where we had our first short break, took 15 minutes. It was cold enough that we could see or breathe. Soon after we started hiking again, smoke was pouring off out Popocatépetl. out of Popocatépetl. Is Popo angry or welcome us? I asked. He's welcoming us, Guzman said. When, after 50 minutes, we reached the next rest stop at El Segundo Portillo, I was feeling the effects of the altitude and the climb peacefully on where that up ahead were even more challenging sections. There's a field with large boulders that one must carefully clamber over, and it was here that I fully realized the wisdom of wearing a helmet and using walking sticks. After that, the path narrows. On the left, it's very steep drop. I wouldn't say it was an overly dangerous stretch, but I found myself leaning as far to the right as possible. They came my favorite section, the Arenal, the sandbank, a long, very steep stretch of some soft sand where you sink to your ankles with each step. To traverse, it means firmly planting your walking sticks on the sand and then pulling yourselves along with your arms. Preferably, Paul Simon's song Slip Sliding Away got stuck in my mind. At that point, we had hiked for 3.5 hours, and we still weren't through Laranach. That's when I looked up and saw Martha sitting and signaling, "Ya no más," or "enough, no more." I slugged up and sat down beside her. When she said she didn't want to continue, I gave a silent prayer of thanks because being a chivalrous man, I knew I couldn't very well leave her, but I was spent. Guzmán said, "El refugio or destination was muy poquito más. Very little left to go, but I've been on enough hikes and high pilgrimage in Mexico to know that muy prontito más can mean anything from a few minutes to a couple of hours." So I asked Castro how much longer. About 30 minutes, he said. Our three in the tower, Guzman and his nieces. Niece. Diana Laura Matthew Guzman continued on the while the while the rest of us ate our lunch. I asked Castro how far we hiked, fully expecting it to be a few miles. About 2.5 kilometers, he said. Stunned, it was then that I understood how thorough high it really was. Well, I'm going to write that we went 10 kilometers, I told him. Getting back down was a lot faster, under 3 hours, and actually found myself having fun as I slide down El Arenal, although the strong, cold wind that had kicked up kept the uh, fun to a minimum. When we got back a trailhead, Guzman placed his hand and bowed to pray. I thank God we returned, he explained. Okay, despite congratulations and handshakes all around, I was a little disappointed that I hadn't made it to Refugio. I feel a little better when Castro said that only about 20% of the people he taken up what make it there. Matthew Guzman's nieces made it on her first attempt. She may have had some extra incentive. When I was 5 years old, my uncle me, promised me that when I was 15, he would take me up. The sleeping woman, she explained, time passed. I will lost contact because of his work last year. I saw him again and reminded him of the promise. I'm 23 now, and 18 years later, he kept his promise. I love it, she said. It was hard, but I want to go again. She may have to wait until next year since climate seasons runs from October through late April. Castro and Guzman have both climbed what dozens of times. I will continue to do so. The mountains has an inexplicable attraction that makes you return again and again and again, Castro said. I didn't know if a guide is a requirement, but I'm convinced it's necessary. In addition to knowing the way and keeping people motivated, Castro Guzman carry everything needed to attend to any type of problem. If you're interested, you can email Castro. You can email Castro at insertion guión bajo 3000 360 @hotmail.com.